review the agenda for 5 o'clock for city council. We have the roll call, invocation by Pastor Priest, pledge of allegiance. Oh, Mr. Benny, you'll be late, so you want to change that to somebody else?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna try to get here, but I don't think I will.
So if Councilwoman Landry, if you could do that, the pledge of allegiance, since Councilman Benny will be late. Then we have acceptance of agenda. Probably most of the time will be spent on awards and proclamations, as you can see.
Lord.
Yeah, we have a lot. And then we'll go to city manager report, sir.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. Primary items I'll be covering Thursday. Thursday morning, there'll be a meeting of the CCOM JPA board, and probably the two largest items on that agenda will be the upcoming budget for CCOM, and we're trying to make that so that those numbers are flat for us in the county going into next year. And then the change, or recommended change to the IGA with regards to the county's request for an additional vote, have met with the sheriff and county administrator. I think we've come up with some compromise language which will have the sheriff chairing the actual operations committee as was originally designed, but still being on the JPA board. The supervisors would then be able to name somebody to the board, which I assume would be the county administrator. The sheriff would be on the board, but would only have a vote in the event of a tie. So I think that probably strikes a pretty good compromise on that issue.
So they're not getting a majority only if there's
only if there's a tie vote.
right, because
then there would be-
we've discussed this privately. So
Yes.
okay.
There are also provisions in the bylaws that will be moved to the IGA, which call for supermajority votes, and those pertain to things like budget or bringing on additional members, or other items where there could be controversy or require a significant vote. So there are added protections in the IGA that I think will make this workable.
And does that come back to the council
Yes,
for a vote?
the Board of Supervisors and the council will then have to approve the
Okay.
JPA.
I will be
board's
at that meeting,
recommendation.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
And then the other item we'll be discussing with the budget presentation today, but we did get our February sales tax numbers, and I must say they're very discouraging, down 7% or so over the previous month, and down across the board, all categories. So one of the poorest months I've seen since the recession. So hopefully this is just an anomaly, but it's something that bears watching, and we'll talk about that more during the budget.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, sir. And we'll proceed on to our public hearing with item resolutions 2024-019. Staff report, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of council. This is an application for a new Series 10 liquor license, which is a beer and wine store for the Dollar General store that is currently just opened on the corner of Highway 90 and Avenida del Sol. The notice of the public hearing was posted on the facility, and we have received no comments pro or con to this license being moved forward. The police department has done their background check of the applicant as well as two of the primary members on the liquor license and has no objection to it moving forward. If approved on Thursday night, it will be returned to the state for final action.
Okay. Kind of first to see a Dollar General have liquor, but any comments, questions? All right, then we go to our next item, which is only a hearing item, no vote. The draft 2024 CDBG grant funding. Staff report, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, as you know, we're moving into a new 5-year consolidated planning cycle, which includes our first-year annual action plan. The consolidated plan establishes the goals and priorities that future community development block grant funding will be put towards to advance our housing and community development goals. We're still working with a funding estimate. The official allocation has not been announced. The plan assumes that the city will continue to receive around $250,000 annually to be put towards projects and programs. Based on the feedback that we received at your work session last January, we will continue to plan and carry out activities centered around public infrastructure and facility improvements, improving accessibility and helping with homeowner rehabilitation, and supporting nonprofits and providing needed services. Towards this end, the annual action plan recommends next year's allocation go towards completing the needed fire hydrants in the Montebello neighborhood, replacing the beds and mattresses at Good Neighbor Alliance, and splitting the public services budget between Boys and Girls Club and the United Way to fund before and after school scholarships and the emergency crisis fund activities. The amount allocated towards projects will be proportionally adjusted to match the actual allocation when it comes in. HUD requires, on a separate matter, HUD requires all CDBG recipients to affirmatively further fair housing. The analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, or AI, is updated every 5 years with the consolidated plan. The Arizona Attorney General's Office is responsible for administering fair housing complaints in Arizona. The HUD Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity maintains data for the state. During the previous 5-year period, there have been only 5 complaints, which is very low. This is a credit to our real estate community and getting the word out and adhering to fair housing laws. The documents attached to your memo were publicized on Facebook for public review and comment for the next 30 days. That period will close on May 8th. Any information that is received will be shared with you when the plan is presented in its final form at your first or second meeting in May. It's going to depend on when we get that official allocation.
All right, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Appreciate it. We go on to the next item, resolution 22. Yes, sir.
I have a question for Matt. Going through this huge
157 pages. Yeah.
this huge document here. I remember just recently we were approached by the folks at Good Neighbor Alliance because they were running out of money. Now, these CBDG, well, whatever they are, these funds cannot be used for operational purposes, is that right? Are they limited or?
Okay. Well, public services are capped at 15%. The bunk bed replacement is considered a project. And so that's under the 70% devoted to low to moderate income benefit. And we were able to categorize that separately from the public services line item in the annual action plan. But normally CDBG funds cannot supplant your general operating expenses. It has to be augmenting an existing service, a quantifiable increase beyond the base level that's historically been offered.
Yeah, because I know we're going to our budget session now, and they kind of asked for a little help from the city, so I don't know, you know, we've got some issues we've got to confront in addition to lowering of the taxes that we're taking in right now, so I was just concerned about that. Okay, thank you for your answer.
Any other questions?
Will had something, didn't you?
I think they were coming with twofold. They were, because they are getting CDBG funds, but they were also asking for money, a line item on top of that
Right.
from the city, so
Right.
something to consider.
All right, yes, sir.
I had the same comment, but it's addressed in here, but I had a question about how it's addressed. It's on page 170. I finally found it. I had it marked on a different paper. I found it. Where it says, it's the last one, it says reaching out to homeless persons, especially unsheltered persons, and assessing their individual needs. Where it says, the city government cannot directly assist persons experiencing homelessness. Does that mean, and I know on the bottom it says because we don't have the, at this time, we don't have the policies or mechanisms. Is that why it says that? Is that why it's worded like that, where it says the city government cannot do this? Is it because we currently aren't set up to? Is that why it's worded like that? Or is this referring to something with a local statute, I don't know, or maybe that I'm missing that says we can't do it?
I don't, Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Rodriguez, I don't think there's a statutory prohibition.
White, black, tall, short, old.
I don't think there's a statutory prohibition to city governments.
Oh, you called him Mueller. You called him Mayor Mueller. That's why.
Did I, oh my God.
I don't see a Hawaiian shirt and shorts.
I apologize for that.
I could be a
Mayor
Hawaiian
McCaw.
shirt.
This is Sarah Pacheco over here.
Yeah. I've been, it's the cold medicine.
Sorry, long day.
Yes. There's no statutory prohibition, I believe, in providing direct assistance to homeless. We've been working through our nonprofit partners on the continuum of care, Good Neighbor Alliance, Better Bucks of Sierra Vista.
Definitely.
And that's been the approach we've taken. So I think that's the posture that's reflected in the narrative in the
That was my only question.
consolidated
I know we're doing all those things,
Yeah.
and it's laid out very well in here, but just the wording of it that says it cannot directly assist persons. I just didn't know why it was said like that.
I just want to make sure, are you talking about does
there.
not,
Right there.
but the city cannot direct, okay. All right.
Yeah. Mayor McCom.
Yes, sir.
Mayor McCom, members of the council, and Councilman Benning is right, there's two different issues. You know, obviously, we can afford a project, or expend CDBG funds on a project through CDBG. We've done that many times in the past. The other issue we're referring about is a request for over $200,000 to help keep Good Neighbor Alliance running. And while there's no prohibition for you doing that, we cannot simply hand money over to anybody. That's those, I'm sure the city attorney would say would be gift clause violations, and we would have to either go out for RFP for services, or in the case of that amount of money, given the operating funds of Good Neighbor Alliance and their budget, we would essentially be taking it over or paying for it all at that point. And obviously, there's issues associated with that as well. So there's a lot that would have to be worked through in order to accomplish that. Not that it can't be done, but
Yes, sir.
there are things that need to be
All
done.
right, yes, sir.
No, when we had brought this up last time, we had hoped to get a joint meeting with the county at one point and see where they stand with this. I don't know where we're at with that. There's been any
Haven't heard nothing.
talks about that or anything from the county? Anyone's heard?
Not heard anything.
Okay. And obviously, yes, it's,
That's on that.
and the main difference is cities that have shelters, it's a city building. We don't have one. It's not the city of Sierra Vista's shelter. Some cities that do fund them, it belongs to the city. It's on their property. It's there, et cetera, et cetera. So that would, like you mentioned, Chuck, it would be, if we were to do that, it would have to be us owning it, taking it over the whole program. As a city entity is what you're saying.
Yeah, we would spell out what services would need to be provided. We'd need to know about financials. There's a lot of things we'd have to.
Thank you.
We'd have to get into.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
To everybody who worked on this and put this together, thank you. It's it's a lot of information, so it's a lot of hard work that was put in, and a lot of time and effort, so I greatly appreciate it. And I did see earlier that it was shared on Facebook for public comment, so I really hope that a lot of the public go out there and take a look and provide any comments or suggestions or feedback as well, so.
All right. Thank you. And any other comments? We'll go to item number 6, resolution 2024-021.
Or number. Wait,
Oh, no, it should be number 5. I'm sorry. Item number 5, 2024-020, restating the city's commitment to fair housing in Sierra Vista. Sir, Ms. Laughlin.
Okay, I guess to continue with this theme, every 5 years with this is something we do annually. So we have to affirmatively further fair housing in the community. One of the ways we express that is through this resolution that is passed that, basically states that discrimination is illegal in Sierra Vista, and there are avenues available for people to seek recourse if they feel that the law has been broken. We do publicize these resources on brochures and handouts in all public buildings, and it's just testifying that we support fair housing in the community.
Thank you, sir. No questions, comments? All right, and we'll go to item number 6 now. Resolution 2024-021. Staff report. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council and City staff. Again, Michael Slania, thank you for allowing me to answer your questions virtually, and I will be there in person on Thursday. Wanted to address the first item. The Sierra Vista IDA has previously approved proceeding with the Desert Heights Charter School project in the amount of not to exceed $16 million. This is an existing 2 schools that we are refunding existing bonds with the goal of lowering the rate and adding some more money to allow improvements to the existing schools. It will be publicly sold through Collier's Security. Happy to answer any other questions you may have, of course, and I will make sure to raise this, as I always do, that this does not involve a financial risk to the city nor to the Sierra Vista IDA. So there's both because of gift clause provisions, which I just remind you all of, and then, but also because of the statutory provisions regarding the IDA.
Questions on 021? All right, then we'll go to item number 7, 022. Sir?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is a different bond issue for Edkey Charter Schools. This is a much larger chain of schools, almost like a school district. Interesting fact on this one, they are the first ones to have a charter school in Phoenix for homeless children. They actually had a bus that went from location to location, shelter to shelter, to pick up the kids. They have a foundation that they are affiliated with that provides additional items. In this case, this is, again, refinancing and adding to their existing facilities and adding one more facility in Show Low. So you'll see there are a variety of locations throughout the state. Again, happy to answer any questions.
It's interesting. Any questions?
I'm just glad that we're looking at these and we're funding things within our own state. I like that. I like that piece of it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Well, no questions, sir? So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I will see you on Thursday.
Very good.
Safe
sir.
drive down.
Thank you.
Then we'll have our call to the public and comments and questions requested from the council. So tonight, we'll proceed to item number B with the 2024-2025 revenue and debt presentation. Hey, Jen.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to kind of frame the process here. This is really the first of your budget work sessions for the coming fiscal year. Revenues are a great place to start because that gives us an idea of how much will be available to allocate to the various projects and programs that you have. And debt is the next thing on the agenda, and those are numbers that are pretty much already locked in, so we already know what those are. So basically, you start with revenue, you subtract out your debt, and then we'll start getting into the personnel and O&M and capital budgets where there's more discretion. So that's kind of how the process will work over the next number of work sessions. And Jen, our budget officer, is here to do revenues, and then if you have any questions or anything along the way, just feel free to ask and interject. Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Today we're going to discuss revenue and debt. We'll first take a look at the FY23 and 24 budget versus actuals, and then move on to the FY25 projections. There. So to mirror what Chuck said, I'll start with a brief background on the process. The very first step in the budget process is to calculate revenue projections. These projections go on to provide a base budget and will show any constraints for the new fiscal year requests. We determine revenue projections by using historical trend analysis. As you've seen in the budget book, it's not uncommon to go back as far as 10 years to track what revenue progressions are in the funds. Also, all projections lean on the conservative side in order to account for fluctuations in the economy, and staff keeps a close watch on any legislative changes. This combination of techniques provides relatively accurate projections of revenue streams. Now let's take a look at the first chart. In this chart, you'll see, wrong one. In this chart, you'll see revenue broken down by fund. One of the first things you'll notice is how FY23 revenue budget is $204 million and FY23 actual revenue is $88 million. The answer to this is essentially one word, it's the grants. So municipalities in Arizona have to account for potential grant revenue in their balanced budgets. The most noticeable example is in the HERF fund. In FY23, the city actively competed for $44 million in HERF grants, and in FY24, the number increased to $61 million. So the same goes for LTAF and airport. For LTAF, don't be discouraged by that small revenue amount in fiscal year 24. Ms. Yoli is working with a new ADOT employee to help smooth the process along, but it's just taking a little longer than normal. If you look at the capital improvements fund for fiscal year 24, revenue in this fund is the difference between the TPT coming in and any transfers out and debt payments. Actuals show higher than the budget in this case because David hasn't done the transfer at the end of the year yet. For the internal services fund, we typically receive the payment at the end of the year. That's why it's showing really small right now. Any questions on the first slide?
Just real quick,
Sure.
before we go forward, where, is it in here yet? Probably not, but like our EV chargers, that estimated funding for that, or revenue that we're gonna get from EV charging, where does that fall into?
It doesn't show it in here, but I can take it separately and email it to you.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Second chart is the FY23 summary by major funds. Fiscal year 23 is currently going through the auditing process. So these numbers are actuals in revenue, personnel, O&M, and capital and debt, which results in the estimated net change for each fund at the end of the fiscal year. In the general fund, the $2 million you see of the net change went to the additional PSPRS payment. The Schneider projects are reflected in the capital improvement fund. Now let's take a look at the enterprise funds. This is where the fund starts to really show how the revenue received is not enough to cover the operational costs and personnel costs that are increasing. So the potential for a rate increase is in the discussion to help improve the situation. Is there any questions on this slide? Okay.
So in other words, we're 300,000 projected in the red here on the enterprise fund.
It's not a potential discussion, it's more of a, we're gonna have to.
Yeah, not potential.
I'm not putting that out there, though.
No, we are, in a situation where we will have to use reserves, and we are cash negative. As we've been mentioning to the council for now probably a couple of years, the situation with costs going up is probably going to dictate sewer and refuse rate increase, and we'll be working on that through the summer.
Yeah.
Is that due to increase in tipping fees recently, or?
Tipping fees have
on the
stayed
trash side?
Yeah, Councilman Johnson, tipping fees have stayed stable for a number of years, so that's one component of refuse. It's really more on the operational end, personnel, trucks, maintenance on trucks, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Maintenance costs for vehicles and parts have gone up dramatically over the last couple of years. So, and of course, our
Fuel costs.
Yeah, fuel costs as well, obviously. So, and then, of course, we've had to give out, probably higher than normal raises to keep up with inflation and the other cities that we're competing with for talent. So all those things combined have caused some significant issues, primarily in the refuse fund. The sewer fund we have a number of high-cost maintenance projects that are coming up that we've talked about a little bit, and that one's been running a little bit behind now for a couple of years. So we haven't raised rates since 2014, I believe.
For the sewer?
It's it's been for a long time now, so inflation is really the major cause of a
So
lot of these
are you
problems.
suggesting that this council consider increasing these fees in this next fiscal year?
I'm saying that that's a recommendation we will be bringing to you.
Okay.
And Mr. Johnson, I'll just point out that this is the actual year-end fiscal year '23, so this is how last year ended. So we have not actually seen this year's losses yet because we're not at the end of this fiscal year yet.
Right.
This is,
Right.
Second quarter.
no, this is, the losses we're seeing right now are last year's losses.
Fiscal '23.
This fiscal year, we don't know where we're standing.
Right.
But we can assume there'll probably be
Big
losses.
losses. All right, you got-
And isn't it the rule that an enterprise fund is supposed to break even?
Yeah,
That's correct.
And so we're gonna be robbing Peter to pay Paul here, which is not the way to do business in my estimation.
All right.
All right.
Sir,
Can,
go ahead, yes, sir.
can we, it was brought up before too, can we get something that shows, what's the recycling rates and stuff now? Can we see something where those are at? Who's buying, how much they're buying for? If we're gonna go through the same process, I wanna go through the same process like we did when we raised rates prior and see where we can make up some of this difference on certain things. I don't know, on that end of the dais, someone brought up recycling and wanted to look at recycling again.
Oh, that was a comment from the public, yeah.
Oh, was it
Yeah, it was a
public?
comment from the
Yeah,
public.
Greg just brought it up, that it was in there.
Okay, and then get the total breakdown so we can, before we have to hit this year when we start the budget, to know, I hate raising rates on anything, so.
Well, Mayor McCon, Councilmember Benning, we don't like bringing that to you either. But they are, as Councilman Johnson points out, enterprise funds, and we have a responsibility to at least break even in them. So if you have some reserve, yeah, you can do that, but we can't keep operating, in this fashion. So at some point, something will need to be done. We'll provide you a very thorough analysis of the revenues and what's going on with that. One thing I can assure you, though, is recycling revenue will not be the answer.
Oh, I understand, I wanna look at it.
Yeah, that'll just make these bracketed numbers bigger.
Yeah, I know.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Oh, I know it's in, we're gonna get to the strategic plan updates later, but I know there's an item in there that mentions maybe keeping our trucks that we were normally auctioning off before. I think it says that verbiage in there, keeping them longer for, if one breaks down, we have a backup. Is that kind of aligned with trying to save some money where we can with this area of the city?
Well, Sharon can probably address the truck situation better than I can, but there's a break-even point where the trucks are down and the parts cost more than it costs to replace. So we're always looking at that point to determine when a truck needs to be retired from service. Yes, we will keep some old ones for backup and that kind of thing. But Sharon, if you have anything else to add.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, the issue with the trucks is, like all things, escalating costs. A couple years ago, we could buy a truck for $300,000, $350,000. Now those same trucks are $500,000. So $500,000 for refuse trucks certainly makes us take a second look and see what other options might be out there. So staff has recommended a refurbishment to some of the trucks that maybe still have some life left in the engine, but some of the higher wear parts, because that arm each pickup day goes up and down about 1,000 times. So some of the components wear out sooner than others. So to try to stretch those funds a little bit further and not have to take some of those $500,000 hits, looking at refurbishments on some of the trucks, try to get a little bit more life out of them. But as the city manager said, there is definitely a break-even point on that. Bottom line is they are high utilization vehicles. And they also don't do very well on gas mileage. Refuse trucks, as you can imagine, with all the start and stop and how heavy they are, they get about 5 miles to the gallon. So sometimes a little less than that. So when you look at the escalation of fuel costs, that's certainly factored into it as well.
I know, speaking of trucks and fuel mileage, I know there was an issue before of our refuse place being actually too close to where the trucks can't get up to, when it comes to diesel, they have to actually be parked and left running. It's a better option than turning them off because of gas mileage and all that when it comes to the DEF. There's a whole math behind diesel fuel, but is that still another part of this equation that's costing us? Because a truck like that is made to be running and driving, where if they're dropping off pretty close, it actually hurts the truck.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, the issue there was actually the speed of the truck and the RPMs associated with that speed. The system that newer diesel vehicles have requires a certain amount of RPMs to operate efficiently. And our trucks, because they drive in town and don't really have highway miles, they have a difficult time reaching that limit. Technology, I believe, has improved, so we don't run into that as much as we used to. But yeah, we used to have to take the trucks on a nice higher speed highway ride, 45 and up. But when you're running just in town, you're running 25, max of 35, maybe just a short little stretch out to the transfer station where you get up above 45.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to hijack your brief.
Okay. So the third chart shows fiscal year 24 summary by major funds to date. These numbers will definitely change as we have the last quarter to go. So we're not worried about the negative numbers for several reasons. First, the allocations and transfers happen at the end of the year. Second, the revenue is still coming in. So as you see, the city sales tax has a 2-month lag. We just received February's numbers, and we'll see March's numbers in May. So the same goes for the state shared revenue. They're at least a month behind, and we're also waiting on any grant reimbursements.
Do we have a projection for this year on sewer and refuse? How much under will be?
Not right now. So we've looked at the previous years. Let's look at the fiscal 25 projections. EPT through January shows 2.82 over fiscal year 23 and 5.68% over budget. DPT through February shows a 0.8% over fiscal year 23 and a 4.1% over budget. So with these numbers, we're projecting a 2.5 increase over fiscal year 24's budget. Keep in mind, this is not all general fund revenue, and part of it is of the TPT number will be transferred to the capital improvements fund. The property tax levy rate will be proposed at 0.1033 to generate $387,167, the increase from last year accounting for new development. Franchise fees show a slight growth. In licensing and permits, business licenses and ACO fee revenue remain flat, while right-of-way permits decreased $10,000 and building permit revenue increased about $100,000. Grants and local government payments have been kept flat as we're still working through those. State shared revenue will be broken down on the next slide. Prop 207 shared revenue shows a slight increase. This money is used as a payment towards PSPRS. In GMC revenue, the increase to labor and parts and fluids revenue isn't enough to make up for the loss of the fuel sales. So right now we're projecting a decrease in that stream. Just a reminder that transit revenue accounts for the tower leasing and the ad sales for the buses. Airport has seen a significant increase, about $1 million more in fuel sales, increases in hangar leases, and a hangar electrical and office space rental have increased. So this revenue will help as we apply for the spaceport license. We're looking to restructure some programs in PRL, so we're anticipating a slight decrease in revenue overall in fiscal year 25. So.
Just a quick question on this slide where we're at it. Where this is, it was just kind of tied to this, where it says the sale of fixed assets, right? That's auction items, right? Is that what I'm understanding, right? How do we set those prices? Who decides on what the bottom line is or what the lowest rate we can take for it if we auction the item? Since we're talking about this line item right here, who determines that?
Mayor McCaw, Councilman Rodriguez, we put those out online. So essentially, what happens is, let's say it's a major, like an ambulance or something like that, and you decide you want to try to donate it or whatever to Canon ASA, for instance, that will bring to you for a donation. Otherwise, most of these things are old and are already accessed, and we just try to get the best we can, an online auction for it. So we're just trying to do the best we can, really, is how that works. And Kenny can.
Kenny.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Johnson. We have one dedicated employee whose job specifically is surplus, and his job is to make sure he knows what the market is and what the minimum to pay. So let's say, for example, a street sweeper for the airport that we just sold at surplus. He sets a minimum reserve amount, which means we will not go below this amount to sell it. So we aren't going to give away our assets. So he checks the market and determines, for example, a minimum would be $5,000 for this surplus street sweeper. And then the online auction, the people who are bidding would try to surpass the minimum and then outbid each other. So, for example, that street sweeper, we set a minimum reserve of $5,000. I believe we got a revenue, the highest bid was about $18,000. So it was higher than expected. But we do try to set a reserve so we don't give our assets away. But the revenues are really based on what the market will bear, who bids on it, and how high they bid on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Johnson. Yes, sir.
Looking at the line on grants, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it, that we had a 23 budget of 81 million, and we came up with almost 7. Then we budgeted in 24, almost 80 million. We ended up with 534,000. Why are we projecting almost $80 million right now on grants that the federal government is already broke? So I'm not going to be looking at 80. I don't think realistically we as a city could put this into a projection at that rate.
If we don't, we can't go for certain grants, so that's why we have to
That's why we have to
either
keep it
way.
high.
If they're not-
I understand that, but
I
I,
know where
you
you're
know,
coming from.
I understand a lot of these are placeholders. That's what, I understand that. But to that amount, I'm looking at the 24
I agree.
projected as far as in actuals, and I'm saying, wow, we're not even close. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, Councilman Johnson, it gets into state budget law. The staff is very good about, pursuing and identifying potential
They are.
grant opportunities. So all of them have to be accounted for in the budget in order to spend them if we get them. Obviously, getting back to what you're saying with regards to, how many grants are we actually going to get, as a result of, the federal government and what they're doing. Probably not going to get most of it, and the numbers reflect that. Yet, if we did, we wouldn't be able to spend the money if we got the grants. So that's why that number is always inflated, and it makes the overall budget look extremely inflated every year. But the actuals never really reach those
It's a hopeful
amounts.
number.
yeah, I know it's a hopeful number, but when the general public looks and they say, wow,
Exactly.
are you spending all that money? Where are you getting all that money? That's all I'm saying.
And
That's all I'm
the
saying.
answer is in the actuals, and no, we're not.
Right, right, exactly.
And Mr. Mayor, Mr. Johnson, some things that might help clarify that as well too is we have a number of grants that we have been awarded that are lagging. And so we're not going to put them in actuals until we actually apply for and receive the money. And the examples of those off the top of my head are like our Federal Transit Administration grants. So those are in there. Those are for like curb, gutter, and sidewalk. I think we have a streetlight project. Those have all just been recently bid. I believe we actually were awarded those in fiscal year 23, if I'm not mistaken. But we're not going to actually spend that money until either this year or possibly fiscal year 25. So those are actually in there, but they won't show up in the actual line. Another big portion of that are some of the streets projects that we've applied for. Each year, we've accounted for $20 to $40 million. Just in, well, this year's RAISE grant application alone is $20 million. So we've applied, this will be the third year we've applied for that. And so it does increase that number quite a bit. And this is the year that we've been told by that granting agency that we have a really strong chance of getting it. And so, of course, we're going to account for that one again. So those are some of the things that will make that number look larger than it probably should be, but we have to carry them forward year to year.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I want to go back, you brought up the property tax levy, an increase to make up for 300,000. Can you go over that one more time? I missed the number.
So the proposed rate is the 0.1033, which would keep the same, taxpayers would pay the same as last year as this year. The increase in the number is just because of new construction.
And Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Benning, the state really restricts us in terms of what we can get in primary property tax levy. So our levy number, as Jen just said, is very low. It has been the council's policy over the past 25 years or so not to raise the property tax rate here. So we keep, the rate actually drifts downward a little bit each year as assessed valuation goes up. And of course, then we avoid any advertising associated with truth in taxation and that kind of thing. So you can raise the rate and go through that, but the amount of revenue that we would get would not really address any budget issues that we might face. So it's a stable revenue source, but the legislature has really taken it away from cities and towns. So,
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Really quick. So for the 23 for the donations, the big difference, is that mainly due to the animal shelter donation not being what it was initially? Is that the main?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured, okay.
So interest rates can have a positive, so we're anticipating an increase in the investment income for the coming year. Just a reminder that the donation line does include organizational grants as well. And then right now, the projected FY25 revenue is $176,558,111. Keep in mind for this slide that the fiscal year 24 are actuals to date, and there's a lot of spring projects that come.
okay.
So as promised, here's the breakdown for the fiscal year 25 state shared revenue projections. We received the league's preliminary numbers last week. Historically, the city uses 95% of the league's estimate. They're currently using 2022's population estimates, and they'll modify their numbers when they receive the 2023 population estimates in late May. By that time, we should be able to refine our own state shared projections. So you see in fiscal year 25, the continued impact of the flat tax and the increased shared percentages have on the URS income. We anticipate $8.5 million in regular URS revenue and a $1 million offset. Fiscal year 26 is forecasted to show about a $500,000 decrease, with slight increases trending up every year starting in fiscal year 27. However, state shared sales tax revenue shows a 2.5% increase, while HERF and BLT remain level with fiscal year 24. Are there any questions for this slide?
I'm sorry for all the questions, but is the sales tax also still including the food tax that may or may not be in jeopardy based on the legislature? I see Mr. Felix is getting up.
Okay. Well, I'll give Mayor McCaw, Councilman Johnson, the food tax is included in our TPT or sales tax numbers, so
Okay.
that's not reflected in the state shared revenue numbers that you have on this particular page. But previously, it was it is included. It is a major factor. We have not heard anything from the legislature with regards to taking away food tax from cities and towns yet, But last year, the rental tax ended up in a last-second budget deal that is hurting us in terms of upcoming revenues for that particular source. So we're keeping a very close eye because I think the budget will not be settled until the last minute again this year at the state level. So we'll keep an eye on that. But what these numbers reflect are slowdowns in the state economy with regards to revenue collections, and of course, our relatively low growth in population as opposed to the rest of the state. So, and the state shared revenue, we're seeing these issues. We're getting offsets. URS stands for Urban Revenue Sharing. That's the income tax. We got a $2 million offset last year. We're getting a $1 million offset this year. We do not roll those into the base budget. We use those as one-time expenditure items because if we build our base budget off of this revenue source that's going away, that'll end up causing us trouble in terms of balancing the budget the next fiscal year. So we set that aside. The sales tax number growth is very low for the coming year, lower than I've seen in a while. And of course, then HERF, which goes towards your street maintenance, is flat and has not been a growth revenue source for us for a long time. And of course, with EVs and that kind of thing, we don't really see where gas tax revenues are going to go up anytime soon, and the legislature has been loath to increase gas taxes. So, and then the other one that's really disappointing here is the vehicle license tax, or auto tax as is here, also projected to be flat. So a lot of these were generally growth revenue sources for us in the past. We're not seeing that so much now, obviously, based on these numbers, and it bears watching because that's going to impact us going forward. So when you're budgeting and you're adding costs, personnel costs, O&M, capital costs, a lot of it because of inflation, and you're bumping up against these the realities of these revenues, it really puts a squeeze on in terms of balancing future budgets. So.
Yes, sir. On the urban offset, what is the left and right limits on that? The limitations on like you mentioned, the purchase, the one-time purchase, things like that. What is the left and right on that when it comes to what you can and can't do with it?
Well, we can put it's a general fund revenue, so it could be used. However, I think the $2 million went towards the school road project last year.
Yeah, that was the construction of the Buffalo Soldier Trail extension because of the school.
Okay.
We've been transferring it into the capital improvement fund for one-time capital purchases.
Okay. So capital improvement fund is where it goes, not the
Yes.
overall general fund.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But you can use it how you see fit.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. I feel like we should have like a
No, these are good
like a
questions.
bar stool for you to sit up there. I'm sorry.
Ask away. They're good questions.
So fiscal year 25 debt projections. The chart shows the principal and interest payments for both Schneider 1 and Schneider 2 bonds, total equaling $3,235,194. It also shows the fiscal year 18 sewer bond refinancing and the fiscal 21 equipment finance for refuse. When possible, we'll try to purchase equipment and vehicles outright in order to keep the debt low. So assuming we have no debt issuance in fiscal 24 or 25, the beginning balance for total debt as of July 1st is $17,259,783. Questions for this slide?
So actually, our debt numbers are very low in comparison with other cities.
So this slide compares fiscal 24 budgeted revenue and fiscal 25 projected revenue by major fund. Again, fiscal year 25 numbers will be refined throughout the budgeting process. Right now, we see a slight increase in general fund revenue. However, for fiscal year 25, we'll prioritize a 2% step increase for personnel, and current O&M requests are currently at $1 million higher than fiscal year 24. So you'll see more of this on the next slide. HERF was kept level at this time since we're still working through grant and requests. LTAF revenue in 25 doesn't show local matches or new projects yet. So in enterprise funds, the sewer shows the Riverstone project taken out. That's why you see the negative 960, but I believe it's going to be a carryover, so it'll go back up again. And as discussed earlier, the 25,000 increase in the refuse revenue won't be enough to offset the increases in operational and personnel costs.
So, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, this slide really kind of shows you the challenges that we're going to have in balancing the budget this year. We've already talked about the enterprise funds and the need probably to recommend rate increases for those. This shows that. And then the general fund difference in overall revenues year over year, $423,000. Just the projected raise alone will eat that all up. So we're not even talking about other personnel requests, market adjustments, O&M increases that Jen just mentioned are $1 million over, what we were, where we're at for balancing, and of course capital as well. So there's a lot of work to be done yet to get to a balanced budget, but that shows the challenge that we're facing with balancing the budget.
We like challenges, though. We'll get it. It'll be okay.
It's not unusual for us to be $1 million out of balance at this stage of the budget. So.
Side of the overview of fiscal 25 budget projections by major fund, this chart gives us a good idea on what we need to focus on. So it'll also change with each presentation, so you'll see a progression at each budget presentation as the process goes closer to adoption. So the first column shows projected 25 revenue. Second column shows an estimate of fiscal 25 personnel with the 2% step increase, and then using fiscal 24's allocations. The third column is the current O&M request for fiscal 25. That's where you see the 1 million over last year. But we're still working with the departments to try to trim that up a little bit, so you'll see that change next time. Since we're still working through capital requests, the fourth column uses the fiscal year 24 capital budget numbers and current projects, so this one will definitely change the next time. The fourth column is anticipated fiscal year 25 debt, with the net change in each fund shown as the last column. So we're still not worried about the enterprise fund. David has a special spreadsheet where he takes all the revenue, all the projects, all the capital, the O&M, gives it over to Public Works, and then we all work together to try to balance it. So that concludes the revenue and debt projections presentation. I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Special spreadsheet, I like the name of it.
There's several special spreadsheets.
Thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you. So just real quick, our next steps in the budget process. If I can get the slide. You're going to have your capital, personnel, and O&M presentation on April 25th, and we'll have a balanced budget May 9th. So you'll have your tentative budget book before the Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, great. If only the federal government could just do the same thing, take a lead from you, Jen, and just have their budget on time.
Little light reading for your holiday.
Yeah, would be good. Would be good.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see us doing any continuing resolutions.
No.
We're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the state doesn't give us that.
Yeah, we don't have that luxury.
All right. Which is ironic, since I'm not sure how they're exactly running their budget process.
We don't know either.
Exactly right, Chuck.
Yeah, but they're sticklers on making sure that ours are balanced.
Don't do as I say.
Go to item number C, 6-month strategic plan update.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw and members of council. So a pretty short report today. We're in our first 6 months of your strategic plan. And so this is generally covering the months of July through December-ish. Most of the priorities and initiatives this time are marked as ongoing or on schedule. I did mark one as complete, and that was your initiative 12.1, which was developing a special event policy. And You recall you discussed that last summer and decided to not establish a policy beyond the current policy of charging everyone the same established rates. Of course, council could revisit that at any point, but it's currently marked as complete. Just a couple of highlights on priority number 1, which was regarding street maintenance. The pavement condition index study was just completed and returned to staff. And even though as they're anticipating your next report, staff are currently reviewing that study and we'll be planning a work session here in the next couple of months as soon as they're ready to present that information to you on the conditions of our streets. I wanted to point out priority 4, which is effectively planning for water resources. There's been a lot of exciting work done by the various water groups that staff are involved in, especially the Cochise Conservation Recharge Network, the Sprinka Adaptive Management Committee. You recall the city or the Adaptive Management Committee of the Sprinka Group was awarded the America the Beautiful Challenge grant. Last year, staff have been working hard to get that implemented as quickly as possible, and I think we're going to be one of the few who have ever implemented this the fastest. So kudos to especially our procurement staff and the coordinator who are making that happen. Strategic planning by both the CCRN and Sprinka AMC groups was done this spring, so that's always exciting. Staff are currently coordinating with Fort Huachuca staff on a potential Army endowment to fund the ongoing efforts of the Adaptive Management Committee. So that's a very exciting prospect. And in general, there's a pretty significant amount of federal dollars that are flowing towards these groups, especially through REPI and the Sentinel Landscapes programs. Towards the various projects that these groups work on. So we will certainly keep you all updated on that. Finally, we wanted to bring to your attention and have a discussion on Initiative 14.1, which is the evaluation and study of the implementation of a municipal court. And so there's been quite a bit of work by staff preparing 2 requests for proposals. Staff first went out last fall for an evaluation and a study, and the first proposal, we had one group, Rounds Consulting, propose $65,000 to do this study. There were not any funds that were budgeted to complete this study. So staff took a look at the RFP and put it back out for a second round to try and bring that cost down. The proposals or the RFP period closed. The same consulting group, Rounds Consulting, again proposed $65,000 to do the study. So our Chief Procurement Officer, Kenny, reached out to them and asked them to reconsider and give us essentially a best and final price and to break down the different components of the study. They did come back with a much better overall price of $34,500 and broke down each component of the study into a specific cost. And so we're asking for some direction from City Council how you'd like us to proceed with this. We could move forward with the study at $34,500 now. We could break it down into 1 or 2 or 3 of the components. We could budget for the study to be completed next year, and so we're asking for some discussion and direction.
Yes, quick.
Yeah.
May I ask what the components are that are included in the 34,500?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I brought it with me. So there are 5 potential tasks. The first one would be an analysis of the need for the new court at $4,500. Task number 2 would be preparing a construction cost benchmark study for $9,000. Task 3 would be a review of operational information provided by the city and determination of cost range. That would be determining ongoing operational costs for $3,500. Task 4 is an evaluation of economic benefits, which would be the analysis and forecast of potential economic benefits a new court might bring to the city. That would be $5,000. Task 5 is an evaluation of viability, which would forecast citywide tax revenues and expenditures over the next 5 and 10 years and analyze the financial feasibility of developing a court. that part would be $12,500.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I had that same question, so thank you for answering that. And this is just to the whole entire staff, for people that have been here for a while. Does that sound like any other feasibilities that we've done recently? Is that on par? Does that sound like the same components for the same price? What do we get for this money? Does that sound about, is that way off, or is that, well, we just did one for this kind of feasibility recently. Is it lined up or not? I mean, if it's apples and oranges, it's, I understand that, but if there's anything else out there that we've done before similar, is this on par or?
Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Rodriguez, the city has done some of this work already, and we've done it in as recently as, I think, 2019 or 2020 and 2022, and then once well before that. So what the staff did, we've done a very high-level estimate on the costs of constructing a court. We do have the operational costs from the county. That comes in our annual breakdown for what the portion of the Sierra Vista Justice Court costs to the city will be. We have not done the economic projection over the next 5 to 10 years. We have not done the evaluation of economic benefits. The other three tasks, we've done a pretty robust assessment of those three.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
How many, just in general, Jennifer, how many hours is she spending on this so far? Just getting bids, reaching out to people, getting information? Do we have a general idea how many hours is being put towards this?
Kenny?
Oh, it says Jennifer.
Well, actually, Kenny's been doing the
Oh, I'm sorry.
Procurement side,
Yeah,
Well, you know, I get paid for all the bids I do for the city.
I
So
understand.
usually preparing an RFP like this to begin the process is probably a 6-hour venture, from developing the document, posting the notices, developing the website. We have a pre-bid meeting that costs staff time because we have to have staff attend the meeting and answer questions. We follow up with a question and answer period where we email questions back and forth so that the bidders can respond properly. And then we open the bid. Usually the bids are a 4-week process, which was round 1. So I'd probably say I spend about 16 hours per bid to do that. And this one had 2 bids, so 16 times 2 is about the average I do for a bid like this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, I'm inclined to recommend proceeding with the current bid at $34,000 for a number of reasons. One, the consulting firm that Kenny's been working with is very reputable around the state in terms of economic forecasts. I think there's a couple components with regards to construction cost estimates and also the budget viability or forecasting out in terms of how well the city can bear the costs of having a municipal court. I think would be valuable coming from another source like Rounds Group. And it is, of course, one of your strategic plan items. So even though it's not in the budget, the staff has done a great job basically cutting the original budget or bid down in half, basically. And I believe we can find the money to get this underway. So I think there is some value in moving forward.
All right, discussion's going to, yes, sir.
I tend to agree with Chuck. I think pared down, thanks Kenny for all the hard work you put in. These consultants like to give you one big package and not really tell you what they're giving you. And I think the breakdown will give us sufficient information going forward and into the future to see if there's a viability for a municipal court. So I appreciate Kenny's hard work on this, and I agree with Chuck. I think we should move forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, sir.
So, I mean, if we don't proceed, the bottom line is we just will never know how much,
That's true.
what the feasibility is, of what the alternative is to what we're doing now. right? I mean, that's just the bottom line is, either we keep doing it the way we're doing now, or we can say there's another way, but what is that other way? This is the way to find that out. Right, that's the bottom line. I think, it's just my,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, I was going a different route. The viability, I go off of our numbers that we've been presented on 3 different occasions by our staff, and to me, it seems like we're throwing good money to bad. Is this something we absolutely viable? Are we gonna do this, or are we just kicking the can down the street because we're upset with what we have to do with the county? I was with Greg in the beginning on, hey, let's look at this and see if this is something we're gonna set up. But we're talking about a fund and an establishment, from all the numbers we're getting from staff, that's gonna start off negative and then just keep getting negative.
But we'll never know.
No, we'll know if we know it's gonna be negative. We won't know how negative.
How negative.
But we know it's gonna be negative. So are we throwing good money to bad that can go towards other things in the city?
But we're
I guess is my only question.
I think I agree with Councilman Rodriguez and Councilman Johnson. We don't know right now. So,
Yeah, I think we need a more comprehensive look.
Well,
at-
you know,
from a third party
it's either that or be held
that's-
hostage by the current JP5.
I agree with you.
It's fine, okay.
And if we don't have it done, we're gonna keep arguing about it every every year, I don't know, 2 years.
You know, you only have me
Whenever
for a
that
few
comes
more
back
months,
with-
so.
That-
34,500, Mr. Mayor.
34,500. And
Yeah,
that will come
and-
out the enterprise fund?
And actually, the part that intrigues me the most, though, is the part where they're going to look at our budget and our revenue and cost projections going forward, and I think that's gonna give you a real good idea of what the annual costs would be. That probably would apply to a lot of other things that we do as well, so it's kind of nice to get an outside look at our projections. So, yeah, you probably will be talking about this again because the JP's contract is due to expire by the end of the year, so we'll be negotiating that, and of course,
Yes.
those have been pretty robust
I
discussions.
enjoy those conversations.
Yes. I know, we can't, but is there a consensus to go
Yeah, I think so.
forward?
Yeah, let's move
Yes.
forward.
Consensus go forward with the study? Yes. Consensus go forward with the study.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's what we will do.
All right.
And that is the end of my report. Staff are here if there are any further questions on the strategic plan report.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Comment about.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I really appreciated the breakdown on the strategic plan and seeing, I really liked to see how so many groups were working together to get to the point where we're at in the strategic plan. That was really cool to see, like, you know, I'm sure we can have a really long discussion on some of this, but some of the different, like, commissions and stuff have been doing different things, and like the Better Works program and things like that. That's been really cool to kind of see the progress and the breakdown and how it's meeting, how so many things that are being done are meeting the strategic plan goals. And then I did want to point out in priority 5 for the identifying grants and funding opportunities and stuff. The grants tracker spreadsheet sounds really great too, and it's really cool to hear that that's going on. And then that their staff are currently working on 32 active grants. So I just wanted to put out in the universe that they should approve the grants that we're sending out. Just wanted to put that out in the universe, and I hope that comes back. But yeah, I really appreciated the update on these, and I look forward to seeing how things progress in the future.
Sir?
yes, just, I echo that, I like that grants tracker. Is that something that we can see at some point? Is that posted on our
It's
on our
an
interwebs of council folders?
It's an internal document, but we
Okay.
can share it.
Okay. If it messes up anything like possibilities, I don't want to put that camera out. I don't want to put that bad stuff in the universe. But if it's something that we can see or just somewhere we can go look at, if we can pop by your office, that's fine too. I'm okay with that. I just like to see like these are all the grants that we're pursuing, just so I know. It doesn't have to be public if that's fine. I'm not trying to change any of that.
Mr. Finney, special sheets.
Special sheets. It's in the special sheets folder. Special spreadsheets.
Skiff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I already asked
Yeah.
about the 7.3 was the EV charging, so I know Jen, we can just see like those projections. Perfect. And then item number, I think this is Matt's 8.2 with the West End stuff, right? Just when it comes to the redevelopment area down there, has it been any better with building owners when it comes to applying for the grants themselves? You know, the business owners versus building owners that want to do this. I know before it was kind of, they had some issues there where the business owners want to apply for the grants for their business, but the pushback was from the actual building owner who was not receptive or responsive and things like that. Are we still seeing that in this area?
Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Rodriguez, I think it's a mix so far year to date. The most recent application that was approved was from 4D Properties, who owns the plaza where the Circle K is at Carmichael and Fry, and they're assisting a tenant with an expansion there, doing the internal renovation work. Dane Abrams, he renovated his facade. He's the property owner and funded the facade improvements at the former Sun and Spokes building. But there are also tenants applying. So it's kind of a mix between the property owners and the tenants. In the case, I think of the one that you're thinking of, it was a tenant who applied and with cost participation from the owner, but the grant will go back to the tenant. And that's for Gifted Creations, who's in the process of opening.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that update. These overall, anytime the parks are mentioned in here, it falls under a few things: quality of life, right? Things like that, sports. And we've mentioned it before, but when it comes to like security portion, like we're investing a lot of money when it comes to but we don't have a lot of security cameras up at this point. And we talked about it before, but is it something that's included in these documents somewhere where we can talk about it as, that's also part of it, is we want to put this money in maybe, but we also want to make sure we have some security cameras up that we currently don't have. So there's no what ifs. I don't know what happened. Was it the wind? Was it the wind? Was it vandalism? Was it, who ran over these things in the park? We don't have those cameras right now. So.
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Rodriguez, so as a specific project, no, we don't have a strategic plan goal related to putting cameras throughout parks. It's more of an internal project that staff has discussed related to the Real-Time Crime Center. Okay. And so the first area that staff discussed was the most important was, of course, the Veterans Park sports complex. The cameras at fire stations, Fire Station 2 is currently underway. Fire Station 1 is proposed for next year, and then we'll bring in 3 and 4 after that. We also have cameras going in at Sear Park. Okay. So it's something that staff are keeping an eye on and building out over the next few years.
Yeah. And Mr. Rubio at IT is in charge of that process. Great. So it is ongoing, and there is progress being made.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I like priority 12, when we're getting a little bit up to the times where we have tap to pay with your card, where you don't have to go find an ATM somewhere to get cash. It's good. Obviously, there are some fees there, and I'm pretty sure it's part of it, but I know you mentioned Square, and I know their admin fees sometimes can get outrageous, but I know that's part of the planning process, I'm sure, when it comes to renewing the contract with them and things like that. 12.1, you talked about the special event policy. I like the update there about the Hummingbird Festival and the ideas going forward there. I know the Arts and Humanities Commission was talking about the art as well when it comes to like utility boxes in our area, so maybe that ties in there somehow, or maybe, hopefully, we can make that happen, tie it to this strategic plan. Because I know that's been around for a long time. I would love to see some hummingbird art, So maybe that could be part of that, hopefully. And then, talked about that already. There's one more. Nope, feasibility study, I talked about that. Oh, the food, last one, final comment, priority 17, so the area of Slugger subdivision, right, with the partnership with Reap Goodness and Echoing Hope Ranch for the food forest, that's the properties that are currently, they were demolished and they're in a flood zone, so nothing can else be rebuilt there, right? That's the areas we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is it, sir? Yeah. All right.
comments, strategic plan. That's all. All right, we'll go forward. Discussion on future options for the youth commission. Sir.
Yes. So, we've, from talking to other cities and towns, how they do it, there's a variety of ways that is done. And every city and town is set up differently from my research and talking to them. The ones that support it do it various ways. Some of it comes from the general fund, some of it comes from, some councils are set up where each council member has a special project fund, and then they, if they're not using it for that year, they donate it to the youth to do stuff like that. So that's one thing. Just, it's interesting how it all happens, how every city and town is a little bit different. But I think moving forward, the first thing that I think should happen is we need to move from a commission to something more of like a mayor's youth group, something like that, where you have more flexibility. But what I don't want to lose is, one, I love that, you know, they're sworn commissioners. That's great, because it's a good start for them in getting involved in anything related to politics or just, you know, serving your community. But I think a lot of times it ties that demographic of youth, of area of age, it ties their hands for certain things, communications, things like that, right? You can't have a group chat, you can't reply to all, and they have all these ideas, and they're constantly wanting to send them out to each other, so they're kind of strung by that. And then, you know, we've worked this very hard to try to keep it available to where we can have a quorum. If somebody's not available in person, they can call in, dial in, things like that. So, but what I would love is support from the city at some point of something. When it comes to, like, if they travel to drop them off at the airport, pick them up from the airport, things like that. Able to use the city logo, because it is a city youth group, but not an official, we wouldn't call it a commission anymore. It could be a youth council, a mayor's youth group, something like that. And those are all the names that other cities in Arizona are using, aside from, some of them are formal commissions, or some of them have started that way, and they've done the same thing. They've changed it to something else where have a little bit more leeway when it comes to the youth. Because it's definitely a unique demographic when it comes to meeting and spreading ideas and things like that. But obviously, you know, the example has been used how the sister cities at one time was a commission, and now they're their own private thing. And there's an MOU with them in the city, what we do, what we don't support them for. So I think moving forward, something similar to that, where it's still supported by the city to somewhat extent, but not a formal commission, because that's really ties their hands to a lot of things sometimes.
So dissolve the commission.
Yes.
Stand up.
Dissolve the commission and stand up a youth, whatever we'll call the name of it, group. But my request would still to have the city support when it comes to when they want to attend things that are important for that group. Whether that's a conference, whether that's a local thing here in the area, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. How would that go to?
Marta, you had a comment first?
Well, I had a question.
Oh.
So,
All right, we have a specific proposal
It's
to
the legal
present to you guys.
ramifications. It's the legal ramifications of city supporting a youth group.
Well, I'll turn it over. Victoria, we've been working on a specific proposal for you guys along the lines of in discussion with Councilman Rodriguez on this. So,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, and Mr. Rodriguez. So the way that we could go about this is, as Mr. Rodriguez said, if the mayor and council want to move forward with setting up a mayor's youth leadership group, that could be done. And then the next step would be to enter into an agreement, like we have with sister cities, with a partnering 501c3. Peaches Pantry was willing to help with the youth leadership trip recently, and so that would probably be the first place we would start, if they'd be willing to partner with the city on this. And if council was willing to move in that direction, then staff would reach out and begin negotiating an agreement that would say, similar to the Sister Cities Commission, the city agrees to provide this type of support, whether it was funding for them to, or an amount of funding for them to go to, like the Arizona League Conference, an amount of funding to go towards the NLC Washington trip. The city would provide transportation to and from the airport. The 501c3 would agree to cover the youth group liability-wise, would make all the arrangements and so forth. That's how I would envision that kind of agreement working out. Once we came to an agreement on that, that agreement would come back to council. So would the formation of the mayor's youth leadership group, or whatever we would call it, which would maintain that city nonprofit tie. And then the third action would be formally dissolving the youth commission. So all of those actions would have to come to council once they were completed.
Marty, you had something?
Well, I think Victoria answered my question, because I was, how does that, where are the taxpayer money going to that? But that was basically just, taking them from one place to the other, right? Like to the airport or up to Phoenix, which we already did this last year, correct?
Yeah, so we would have a support agreement,
Right.
with like Peaches Pantry, use of our facilities, transportation, maybe some seed money in the budget to assist with trips. This model, though, would give them the flexibility and freedom to go ahead and do their own fundraising through Peaches Pantry, so that they have some skin in the game for raising the funds necessary to do that, and it wouldn't be all on the taxpayers at that point to do
She
it.
answered all my questions.
And then, of course, they would be freed from a lot of the open meeting law and other requirements that we have.
And that's one of the restrictions that you had because of the availability of the youth.
Right.
On time. That's why you have meetings on Sundays.
Yes, right now, currently.
Because the youth are not available during school hours, and
it changes because now that's not the best day now, and now it's maybe a weekday's better, so it's herding cats, but I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to be that shepherd and keep them involved, so.
Okay. All right, still, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So you're just looking for a consensus to move forward with the agreement? Is that where we're?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
That's the direction council wants to move on the youth commission.
Yeah.
Are we talking money involved here, or?
Yeah, there's
We're
still
just talking support.
Well, it would still be in once the agreement is actually written, yes, there would be some money involved for sure. One is, driving back and forth, if you want to call it staff time, just like we do, like we had done before. And in my mind, I would think of maybe conference fees, something like that. That's small, not huge, right? And that was easily done while we're doing ours. It's the same way they can just do art and take care of that, because that's kind of hard to do outside of the city when it comes to something that's associated with like the league and things like that.
For example, we could even split that out. We could say, well, we'll support your registration fees or something like that. And then they would be responsible for raising funds for hotels and flights and, those kind of things. So,
you'll have no flexibility.
we do.
501c3.
What's important to remember, though, is we do something similar, although there's not the seed money with Sister Cities right now. We are providing support to Sister Cities under a similar type of arrangement. It's just they have their own 501c3, and here we would be working with a separate 501.
Yes, and we are talking about youth. We're not talking about adult. These aren't adults. These are youth that are. They can't provide much of their own money at this point, right? They need all the support they can for their different initiatives they want to do. But we were able to fundraise with Peaches Pantry as a partner 501c part, so it's possible. The model's there. It's just the other side to it is having the city support when it comes to, hey, we want to go to attend this thing or whatever. We'll do our part like we did fundraising in various ways, and we'll have more flexibility to do that. That way, it doesn't have to come through. The money doesn't have to come to the city hands for any legalities that anybody may be worried about on that end. So that's kind of the difference there.
But in this way, they have the whole year to raise the funds, so maybe they wouldn't need any city funds if they had the whole year to do it. Short time fuse on the last one, only a few months.
I'm sorry. I thought the council was in favor of supporting. It was a short time frame. It wasn't budgeted, and that future trips we were talking about. And then if you can still fundraise while being a commission, I don't understand the change. What that would.
We weren't able to fundraise as a commission. as a commission, we weren't able to fundraise because from the understanding what I understood at first was that we could fundraise or bring it as a donation, but talking to the lawyers and talking to Mr. Felix, it's not, the city did not want to go that way, to receive the money as a donation. Instead, it's better to keep the money separate.
Yeah, there are some IRS issues.
Right.
That they wouldn't be, under the new model, they wouldn't be subject to.
But, I mean, you just did it though, right?
But it was
I'm-
with Peaches Pantry.
Right.
But as a commission, but the other part of that is the open meeting law that we're falling under. That's given us some issues when it comes to meetings.
Okay. And what we did with commissions that we didn't want to have open, we made them non-regulatory. Is that not also? It just sound, I don't.
It would not be a commission anymore under this model.
Yeah, I just don't want to agree to something without, I have to think about it more.
Well, what you would be voting on, Mayor McCon, Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey, is the agreement that we would have, hopefully with Peaches Pantry. That would specify all the various items, and of course, then you would have an opportunity to review that, and if you had any questions or changes, that could be done, during that time.
Okay.
Mr. Fields, did you have something?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Mr. Rodriguez and I did have a discussion in regards to the fundraising. And one of the challenges that we had with this one is to be a tax-deductible donation to the city, it must be for the city public good. And Mr. Rodriguez did point out that this was for these individuals' benefits, not the whole city's benefits. And that's where the trip up comes in. Peaches Pantry does not have that same type of thing. Your 501c3 does not have that same requirement. But we are not a tax exempt organization. We do not fall under Section 501. We fall under a completely separate section of the tax code, and you cannot give yourself a personal benefit or your child or your family member a personal benefit. It must be for the city's good, and that's where the really hard part of this comes in.
Yeah, and that was a similar situation with Sister Cities because they were raising funds to send youth from the high school to Germany or to Cananea, but that was really to the benefit of those individual students that were wanting to take advantage of it. So they ran into the same issues that we were running into here.
I could argue all day how even that program is a benefit to the entire city. As
I will
one,
not
as a
disagree
partner,
with you on
and
that,
two,
but-
as just a city as a whole. Why would we not want to support our youth in this initiative? Because that is priceless. But I also understand how it's benefited. You're benefiting somebody, not everybody. It's even though it is open to anybody that wants to participate, 100%. There's no, and the other thing too of going the other way is we're not limited to we can only have so many commission members, things like that, where it's open, it'd be even more open to our community. Which again, those trips and things like that are just for our youth to be able to have the opportunity, which they probably normally wouldn't have. If any city wants to support, I don't see why any city would not want to support an initiative like that. Sir?
Thank you. I got several questions. I've been patient and listening. First, monetarily, do we give League of Cities any money besides travel and transportation? Do we give them any monetary value?
Do you mean our annual membership?
No, anything we give to not League of Cities, excuse me, to sister cities?
I don't believe, Laura, do you know?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Benning. With our relationship with sister cities, the only thing that we provide to them of monetary value is their annual registrations for Sister Cities International. We pay for that for their membership, but you also have an agreement with them that they are helping the mayor and council pursue everything through their sister cities. Like, they can go out and fundraise, and they're taking care of the mission that the mayor and council have for their adopted sister cities.
Right.
So, and that's been very successful. They fundraise all the time. They handle all the bratwurst sales at our Oktoberfest. They don't pay, we waive their participation fees because through that agreement, they can just request that I do that through my office. And I waive that and they come in and that's been great. And it's been a great relief to our operational costs as well. And that is one thing that we can mirror with the youth commission in that too. So just as an option.
Okay, thank you. And I'm gonna keep going. So your vision, like I think you just said it too, which clear. So anyone, any youth in this city can join this leadership, this mayor's leader, whatever we're gonna call this.
If they go through the process, I mean, they can't just show up and say, "Hey, I'm here." No, there's still a process. I mean,
Oh,
you still
I
have to-
agree, but there's no voting in, there's no, if you come, you fill out, here who I am, now I can be a member, right?
No, there's still a process. I'm saying the issue is like if you, like when I talk to other cities and areas that do it this way, right? There's still like a application process. People apply. They can't just show up and say, "Hey, I'm on it." No, they apply, which is actually more formal than we do now. They apply, and it gets voted on. You know, whether it's formal or not, with the mayor, and say, "Look, these person, we looked at their applications, right? We have this many applicants available." I would love to have that problem where we have too many. We don't have that problem right now. But eventually we have that problem. Great. I love that. When we get there, sure, that'd be awesome. But there is a process, right? Everybody, you have to apply. Just like now, to be on a commission now, what is the process? You apply and we vote on it, right? There's do a little background check, whatever. Okay. This one is similar. It's the youth wanting to be part of it. They would apply. And if there's multiple people that we have to vote on, who gets it or who doesn't, then that board will take place.
Now, who votes though? That's my question.
The council and the mayor.
But it's not a council, it's not a commission, so
No.
council and mayor can't vote on it.
Unless if they want to be, if they don't want to be part of the vote, that's okay. They don't have to be part of the vote. I mean, we can set it up to where it's not that way. But that's how I'm just saying how that's how they do it. The people involved in those whatever they're called, councils, committees, they have, it's written in their agreement who votes on the packets and who doesn't. That's part of the process.
What I would like to see, I would support a memorandum of agreement with Peaches Pantry to support this commission, or it won't be a commission, this youth group.
Leadership group.
Youth organization.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see before throwing more behind that is more detail. How is this gonna work? What's it gonna look like? A commission's a commission because they provide something to the council. With that, a non-regulatory commission provides something to brings things up for the staff and for the city, not for the council. They're not directed from the council, they don't have a mission from the council. So, same with sister cities, we hear about what they do, they represent us when they're out there, but they don't have a quote-unquote mission from the council and mayor. We don't vote on the number of kids or who the kids are in the sister cities, etc. That would have to be that profit, and I agree with that.
Yeah, their mission is totally different.
Then what? The youth commission?
Yes, it's a totally different thing.
What's our youth commission?
Their focus
mission.
The sister cities obviously focus on the sister cities. That's the problem.
I get that, but what's the mission of the
The
youth?
same that they do now. They want to, for one, the youth voice of our community, right? They are our youth voice that we can go to and hear them straight from them, right? Their initiatives they want for our community, it comes straight from them. And then we just, like I've always done, try to make it happen, connect the dots on the back end for these initiatives to happen, right? They don't have the money to do that. They can't just get together themselves and say, "Hey, I want this project on the West End. Here, let's do it as 15-year-old kids." No, they need some support. They need some backing.
I agree. What I'm saying, let's see what this looks like. I would support working with Peaches Pantry, give them, here's a memorandum, city's gonna work like we do with Sister City, and there'll be the 501c3. I'll support that any day of the week, and twice on Sunday. But what's that called and what's that look like? I think we need to spend more pen on paper and coming up with that.
I think that's what we're saying is that's the whole.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm supporting that, and I'm looking forward to
Yes, that would obviously be the next step is to see it on paper, yes.
That's what I want to see.
I think we're concluding it now.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
The last time we discussed this, several members mentioned what's the benefit to the city? We sent a bunch of kids on a plane to to Washington DC and they see the Smithsonian and all that. But what does it do for the city?
But we didn't pay for it.
Well, first of all,
I understand that, but I'm just thinking out loud here that the last time we talked about it was expending city money to individuals. That's what we're doing.
yes.
There's no benefit to the city per se.
I'll tell you what this last trip did. I'll tell you the benefit right now. It was very simple. They were able to speak to their legislators in their office about youth initiatives that are affecting them right here, Cochise County, Sierra Vista. They're voting on border laws, border issues, and they're asking our youth, how does this affect you? And they brought up their issue of, here's the social media. They talked about that directly to their congressmen and senators, how it affects them. And that was great information for our legislators. They also talked about banning TikTok. How does that? They're the ones who use it. Everybody up in the Capitol. You think they're TikTok users? No. They talked to our youth that was actually there that uses it, and they had their opinion from people that actually use it every day on why and it should. What's their opinion on? What's their thought on the banning? Because it's going to affect them a lot, right? So that right there affects our community. Yes, they're not old enough to vote. I don't care about that. Right? If you don't see the impact in that, how that affects our community, giving back, that's their voice from here, from Sierra Vista, Cochise County, in the Capitol, talking to the legislators. Nobody else in their school will ever have that opportunity over spring break. I guarantee you nobody else did that because I didn't see them there, right? So that in itself, letting their voice, who else is going to have their voice heard by the senator and congressman on their spring break that actually affect issues that affect them? Nobody.
So do we need to do a pause? It's been 90 minutes.
You can go more time if you'd like to finish up your agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
You have up to an hour
Okay,
that you can
all
go.
right. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a thought. I'm gonna try to word it, see if I can word things good. One of the concerns that I did have before was some of the liability when dealing with youth and things like that. I feel like there's extra layers of liability. So I do like I think the idea of partnering with a 501c3 to take on some of that liability and to cut out some of the barriers that are there. I think that's good. I think Sister Cities provides a really good model for that, how sometimes things start a certain way and then they kind of go another way. I feel like it's reasonable. First of all, the discussion that we're having is just a discussion on future options. We're not deciding on the options. We're not deciding on things right now. It's just kind of seeing what will work out, and so that there's still lots of work to do. I feel that. Sorry, my mind went blank. That I feel. Oh gosh. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I'm not going to take an hour. I'm sorry. Hold on. I feel like it's not unreasonable to be able to pay for some of the registration fees for some of the conferences, as long as the group will cover some of their getting there and their travel or whatever, like their travel and their lodgings. I feel like if they are able to raise money for that, I feel like that's reasonable for us to pay for some of their registration fees, because it's not going to be like tons and tons. It's not like we're going to be registering like hundreds of kids and stuff. So I feel like that is reasonable, and I feel like the various barriers and stuff as far as the meeting the quorum and having a I don't know. Being able to share things and have it be casual sharing of ideas with children with the youth commission, because when they have ideas and stuff they want to share and stuff. So anyway, I feel like that so I feel like having some sort of connection still with the council will provide the group more opportunities than maybe they would have if they were on their own, as far as being able to go to some of the different conferences and things like that, and being able to meet, legislature and whatever. So I do feel like moving forward with the idea of dissolving and making something different, I think that would be reasonable, and I look forward to kind of seeing what options there are.
I'm glad you brought up the liability issues. I wasn't even, I forgot all about that. So that makes it good. And also, we could approve them as a council, I think we do with the IDA, right? We're really hands off, but we approve those members. maybe it could be like that.
If you want to talk about liability, we can talk about liability all day.
No, not for an hour.
We lose kids right here in our own city.
Can't, yeah.
We've lost a kid right here in our own city, right? That's liability, but that's not a huge issue, right? We have these issues we talk about in executive session where we pay money for liability that we're talking about, right? Trust me, kids going on these kids that are selected to go on a trip and you're worried about liability. I mean, we're not going to just wander off, and there's chaperones involved. There's rules involved. They're not just going to wander off into the streets. That's not how this works, right? And I understand.
Especially with new kids.
Yes, I mean there's a structure to this. They're not just going to be off on a bus by themselves. So,
Well, I have a question right now.
That's in favor of
Was
it.
there a liability insurance policy in place on this last trip?
the parents all signed off on it. They were good. They were covered. Yes, parents are covered.
Culpable.
They have insurance. It's good.
Right, so here's the question. What's gonna change, what's gonna differentiate this group from, for instance, Buena City Student Council, who wants to go do legislative things also?
That want to do it. That's
Not
fine.
wanna do it.
We have nothing to do with
Okay,
it.
oh no, time out. Who says they represent the city and wants city to help fund them and pay their registration fees?
That's on you. If you choose not to be a part of it or want to support our youth, that is your vote. Vote with your heart, man. What I'm saying is,
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm not asking where my heart is. I support youth all the time. What I'm saying is, what's going to differentiate one group of youth from another group of youth? Both of them are youth,
Okay.
supporting the city, representing our city. By
got
going
two
and talking
youths.
to the legislators, that return on investment's the same for both groups.
sure.
Why does the city pick one over the other?
Who else is doing it?
Okay,
Who else has a
you're-
mayor?
You're not answering the question.
You're asking. So you're saying that there's going to be 2 mayor youth councils?
No. What I'm saying is, there's a lot of youth groups that do things.
There is. There's a lot of great
What
groups.
discerns this group from another group?
It's
Because
supported. It's
we
supported by the
associated
city.
with the mayor?
It's supported by the city
Okay, yeah, I understand that, but why is it gonna be supported by the city?
because that's what we should be doing as a city.
Okay, we're
City
supporting the
councilman.
youth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but there's a lot of youth groups we can support.
Sure there is.
So why are we gonna make one group, and why are we gonna make one group special in the city and say the city and the mayor is gonna support them?
It's open to anybody to apply for it.
Okay, but you just said it's gonna be voted on.
There is a process that votes who
Okay.
joins it, who doesn't.
So what
If-
makes
I say
one
if we
group-
get to that problem,
What makes one group better than another?
they're all doing great things. What I'm saying is, one is supported by the city. Actually, the city logo is on their things like that. That's
But
a big
why?
difference. Because we care about our youth as a
Okay,
city.
that's not a why though. That's what we individually want to do. We support our youth. The city supports the youth with a lot of things we do.
Okay.
What I'm asking you is, why don't we then just say, well, Buena has youth that are in an elected position that they ran for an office. Why don't we support them with going to see their legislators, with going to see their representatives?
Because that should be handled by the school district.
Okay,
They have a school board.
so
They
why
have
come
funds.
up with a mayor's youth council? What are they? My question right now, Youth Commission has a mission of coming up with ideas of what the youth in Sierra Vista need and presenting it to council.
They can still do that.
Okay, so now it goes back to, are they a commission working for the council, or are they just a youth group? And it'd be nice to support our youth group.
They're still going to have. They would still present to the city just like the sister cities does.
Okay.
Yeah, but they have restrictions.
What restrictions?
Restrictions on fundraising as well as participation.
Yeah.
That's where you're going.
I mean, I don't understand what your. I
Okay,
still don't understand
so-
your question here.
It goes back to kind of what Greg says. And I think that it goes back to the numbers. For me, it's numbers. If we limit it to 5 people, then that's numbers. Then we're limiting what we're doing with our youth to 5 people that we elected and or voted on joining this youth commission or youth group. So we have youth groups all over Sierra Vista. We can just say, hey, we're going to throw our backing behind you.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do the same thing.
No, they're not.
Why not? What is your youth commission or youth group going to do for us?
I think that goes to the MOU.
It will, but
There's going to be no difference than it is right now. It's a youth commission right now.
Yes, ma'am.
They're not gonna change what they do.
They
Just
are.
the function of it will be different.
100% they are.
How?
Thank
They-
you, Mr. Mayor. I could possibly add some clarity if it's okay, Mr. Benning, Mr. Rodriguez.
Please try.
I think part of the issue here is that the current setup for the Youth Commission is not working. So open meeting law, restrictions, having to set an agenda and advertise a time and a place and so on. So part of the reason the Youth Commission exists is to expose kids to city government. And so that's why the city currently pays for the kids to attend the summer league conference. They get to go and be exposed to what is city government, how does city government work. The NLC conference is city governments on a national level. So if that's something that council wants to support in helping them to go, it exposes kids to city government. So by setting up a group in this way, the city could maintain its connection to a youth group that was dedicated to, or at least part of their important mission was being exposed to city government and how it works in some way. And that's something that you could specify through this agreement, is that you want the mission of this youth leadership group to be exposed and learn about city government. And so that would be helping youth grow in their knowledge of how city works. So by setting up that group and maintaining this connection with the 501c3, our next step could be to draft this agreement with Peach's Pantry that would specify these things. What's the mission? How would this work? What would the funding be? And then it comes back to you for consideration. If it's not quite the way you envision this working, then we go back to the drawing board and come back with a new iteration, or you say, no, this isn't what our vision was. So the next step could be to, let's put that agreement together, a draft agreement, and bring it back and see what you think.
I think that would be my suggestion. Just draft
I'm
agreement
all for it.
together.
That's what we've been saying the whole time. It's gonna be on paper.
I'm all for it.
It's
Look
nothing
at it,
different than we
digest
haven't
it,
said.
talk.
Look at our community right now. We have Dimitri and Avi. Were you on the youth commission, Dimitri?
Can't ask
Look how many good things he's, yeah, this is a work session. We can ask anybody.
No, you
Look how
can't.
many things he does in our community, right? Think about that. That's just one example.
I'm with you.
So, yes, ma'am.
And I understand that, and I do support the youth, but I never left our state, I never left this city till I was 18 years old and got married. And then I left. But so you can't just say just because you expose kids to everything that they're gonna be, turn out great. I was limited. My parents couldn't afford to send me. So we did fundraisers, cheerleading camp. There we were in front of Jack in the Box in our rockers. That was a fundraiser. So, I get it that you really want to give the kids everything, but sometimes you can't. And when it's on the back of the taxpayers, us, you have to remember that not everybody wants to, give $10 or let that kid go to Washington, D.C., Phoenix, in a way, some of them don't care. They really, but and so we have to remember that. And because it's not just, not supporting our youth the way that you feel or I feel, we have to support the youth as the city would like us to. That's what we have to remember, in my eyes. I don't, maybe I'm off. But,
Sure, there's a lot of things that our taxpayers pay for that they never use as well.
Right.
And that happens all the time, every day. Taxpayers support it, they pay it, and they never use it, and that's okay. I don't hear them complaining about it. I don't see a lot of people waiting up saying, I pay for this, and I don't ever use it.
Mr. Benning had a comment.
Yes, my biggest concern, I want to make sure it's open to more people, and that's all.
Open to more youth.
More youth, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to limit
That's
the amount
part of the
youth.
whole deal is I want it to be open.
I'm saying, that's my whole deal too. I love the idea of helping youth and taking care of them.
So,
What that'll look like will come later, but.
so is there consensus on the dais that we move forward with
With the
looking at
draft,
the memo,
yes.
looking at the draft of the MOU
Yes,
with Peach's Pantry?
yes.
Or any other 501c3 that's
Any.
Okay. Consensus?
I think we,
All right, let's move
You
forward.
said no consensus?
no, we're so ready, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
Right, yeah.
All right,
Good idea, Mark. Thanks for bringing it to us.
excellent. So we'll go to item number
Oh, shoot.
We're
Still
halfway
got
through.
items.
Oh, no. Report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. And you got sports.
Huh? Oh, Parks and Rec going tonight,
Oh,
5:30.
Okay. Ma'am?
Yeah, and then the Arts and Humanity Culture Diversity meets tomorrow at 4:30 at the Oscar Room Community Center.
All right. Excellent.
That's like
Sir?
words.
Ma'am?
And just a reminder, there is a special meeting Thursday
Yes.
at 4 PM to go into executive session to talk
Executive
about
session
real
at 4.
estate. So,
He won't be there. Yeah, he'll be a little late. So
we could call you in. Are you available electronically?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll get with you and get a phone number. Are you not going to be here Thursday night then?
I have a 3:10 appointment
Ah.
in Tucson.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I'm hoping I'll be done by 3:30 and
Get with us and we'll get you on the
He's gonna
phone.
close his ears. I'll be back by 5.
We'll get you on the phone.
Yeah, okay.
I could fix that for you.
No, I'm done with it. This is my last one.
And future discussion items, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I'm tracking at the moment is your next budget presentation on our O&M personnel and capital requests and the PCI condition survey report when we have that ready.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have a comment. I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody who stayed here because you have to for our very lively and lengthy discussion. Even though that might not have been the most fun. Thanks for sticking it out.
Yeah.
Well, to Deputy Chief and Liz, the budget items, good to see y'all. Getting your feet wet. So if there's nothing else.
Look how happy he is.
Oh yeah, he's happy. He's always smiling. He's always smiling. We're adjourned. Ugh.